This story is titled "My Cheating Fiancé's Friends Attacked Me After I Refused to Marry Her." So I press charges before I get into everything. I just want to say, if you're watching and haven't subscribed yet, it really does help more than you think. The channel's been slowing down a bit, and subscriptions are one of the easiest ways to support us. It's free, takes 2 seconds, and it helps us keep telling stories like this. I'm posting this from a throwaway because parts of what happened are still tied up in the legal system, and my main account would make it way too easy to identify me. Even now, writing this out feels unreal. What started as a normal engagement somehow ended with 3 people in state prison, 2 more on probation, my ex waiting on her own legal consequences, and her lawyer boyfriend likely losing his career. I still have moments where I sit back and wonder how my life turned into something that sounds like a crime documentary. For context, I'm 31, and I met my ex-fiancée, 29, I'll call her Katie, about 4 years ago at the sports bar I manage. I know being a bar manager doesn't sound glamorous, but I genuinely love what I do. I started as a bartender right after college with a business degree I never really used, worked my way up, and now I run one of the top-performing locations in our chain. We have great regulars, strong sales, and a staff that actually likes coming to work, which says a lot in this industry. Katie was the complete opposite career-wise. She was a high-performing real estate agent, the type who posts weekly updates about closing million-dollar properties and humble brags about it online. The night we met, she came in with her high school friend group. On paper, they were all impressive. 2 corporate lawyers, a dermatologist, a finance executive working in hedge funds or something like that, and a marketing director at a major tech company. They were celebrating a birthday and dropped around $600 on drinks and appetizers without blinking. After that night, Katie kept coming back, usually during my shifts. We clicked fast. She liked that I could make her laugh, and I admired how ambitious and driven she was. Looking back, there were early warning signs with her friends. They'd make small comments about my job, things that sounded polite but weren't. Stuff like how nice it was that I was happy where I was, or asking if I'd ever considered corporate management. At the time, I brushed it off because when you're into someone, you don't want to nitpick their friends. Things moved quickly. Within 3 months, she was basically living at my place, and by the 1-year mark, we officially moved in together. I had a 2-bedroom apartment in a newer downtown building. It wasn't luxury penthouse level, but it had a doorman and security cameras, which ends up matching more than I could have imagined. The lease was in my name since I had stronger credit and had already been there for a while. For a long stretch, life felt solid. Katie was doing great in real estate and made more than double what I earned, which her friends loved to remind me of, but we were happy. I got promoted to general manager and later started training new managers for other locations. Our families got along well. Her parents were kind and treated me like family, and mine respected her ambition. Last December, I proposed. I planned a weekend trip to a mountain resort about 3 hours away, arranged a private dinner overlooking a lake, and hid the ring in dessert. It was a little cheesy, but she always said she wanted a proposal story she could tell people. She said yes, and we spent the next week celebrating and talking wedding plans. We aimed for October, after peak summer wedding season, but before it got too cold. Her parents generously offered to cover most of it and put down around $40,000 in deposits for the venue, catering, and flowers. That's when things shifted. Suddenly, her friend group had to weigh in on every single decision. The color scheme needed their approval. The menu had to match their dietary preferences. The seating chart had to guarantee them the best table. It became exhausting, and the jokes about my job got sharper. They'd ask Katie if a 6 o'clock ceremony would interfere with my shift or suggest weekday dress shopping, since that would probably be a slow night at a sports bar. It was constant. What hurt more was that Katie never shut it down. She'd either laugh along or, worse, agree with them. Not long after the engagement, I started noticing small changes in Katie that I tried to ignore at first. She was working later and later, always blaming it on last-minute showings that popped up at strange times. She changed her phone password and started keeping it face down all the time. If I walked into a room, she would subtly flip it over. It was textbook cheating behavior, the kind you read about online and think you would never fall for, but I trusted her. Or maybe I just did not want to see what was right in front of me. Probably a mix of both. At the bar, we have a regular named Sarah. not her real name, who comes in every Wednesday for trivia night with a group of coworkers. She has been coming in for years, tips well, never causes issues, and is genuinely one of those customers you are happy to see. She works in HR or something like that, super kind, mid-30s, just a solid person. One Wednesday she was acting off. She kept glancing at her phone, then at me, then back at her phone. Between trivia rounds she barely talked, which was strange because she is usually competitive and fully into the game. During a break she waved me over and asked if we could talk somewhere private. I figured maybe there was an issue with another table or something work-related. We have a small office near the kitchen where I handle paperwork, so I brought her in there. She looked uncomfortable, like she was about to deliver terrible news. She started by saying she was not sure if she should tell me, but that if it were her relationship, she would want someone to be honest. Her sister Jenny works at a high-end salon downtown, the kind where a haircut costs more than my monthly utilities. Apparently Katie had been going to Jenny for about a year, always scheduling appointments when I was at work. That morning, Katie came in for highlights and spent the entire 2-hour appointment on the phone with someone she kept calling babe and baby. When you are doing someone's hair, you are right there, so Jenny heard everything. Katie was laughing, planning a weekend getaway, and at one point referred to her idiot fiancé, which was me, saying I would think she was at a real estate conference. Standing there, I felt my brain trying to reject what I was hearing. I told myself maybe she was talking to a girlfriend. Some women call their friends babe. I was reaching. Sarah then pulled out her phone and showed me an Instagram story her sister had sent her. It was from a fancy restaurant a couple towns over, one of those places with a name that sounds imported and expensive. The post was from someone celebrating their own engagement, but in the background of the champagne toast photo, clear as day, was Katie sitting close to some guy in a tailored suit. The timestamp on the story was 9:47 p.m. the previous Friday. The same night Katie told me she was having a girls' night. At 9:52 p.m. that night, 5 minutes later, she had sent me a selfie of her at home wearing a face mask with her friends. She had staged a fake girls' night photo to cover up her date. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I thanked Sarah because I did not know what else to say when someone just shattered your reality. She kept apologizing, saying she felt awful. I told her she did the right thing and comped her groups tab for the night. My owner is understanding about that kind of thing. Then I went back to work with 5 hours left in my shift, running on autopilot while my head spun. I decided not to confront Katie right away. Instead, I did some digging. We had a shared iPad at home that we mostly used to watch shows in bed. Months earlier, when her phone was being repaired, she had logged into her iCloud on it and apparently forgot to log out. That night, after my shift, while she claimed to be sleeping at a friend's place, I opened the iPad. There were hundreds of messages between her and her ex, Michael. This was not some recent slip. They had been meeting at a hotel near his office for months, going back to February. The messages were explicit and cruel. They were not just hooking up. They were mocking me, planning a future together, talking about how they would get it right this time. What made it worse was seeing that her friends knew. Every single one of those accomplished professionals was in on it. The group chat was full of them giving her advice on how to hide it better, joking about my job, saying at least Michael could take her to a real restaurant, coaching her on what to say if I got suspicious. They even told her to wait until after the wedding to leave me so she could get more money in a divorce. I screenshotted everything, emailed it to myself, backed it up to cloud storage, and even took photos of the screen with my phone in case anything disappeared. The messages stretched back through every supposed girls' night, every work event, every so-called conference. As I kept reading through the messages, it became clear she had not just been seeing him occasionally. She had been with him consistently, and her friends were not just covering for her but actively helping plan hotel meetups and fake work events to keep me in the dark. One message hit harder than the rest. On the night I proposed, while I was pacing outside the restaurant rehearsing what I wanted to say, she was texting him, telling him not to worry, that it did not change anything, that the engagement was just business and he was the one she really loved. I sat in our living room that entire night after finding everything, scrolling through 4 months of lies, trying to understand how someone could look you in the eye every day, share a bed with you, plan a wedding with you, and still be plotting behind your back. I did not sleep at all. The next evening she came home around 7, claiming she had been out showing houses, even though the messages made it clear she had been at his place. I was ready by then. I was not shaking, not yelling, not even crying. I just sat there and waited. She walked in smiling, talking about how productive her day had been, saying she showed 3 properties, asking what I wanted for dinner like nothing in the world was wrong. I let her talk while she set her purse down. I had spent the entire day going over what I would say, but when the moment came, I did not give a speech. I simply handed her the iPad, already open to her conversation with Michael. She tried to act confused for about 2 seconds, asking what she was supposed to be looking at. Then she noticed the dates and actually dropped the iPad onto the coffee table. I watched her face change in real time. The calm disappeared, replaced by panic, then anger. Instead of apologizing, she started screaming about privacy, about how I had no right to look through her messages. Out of everything she had done, that was what she chose to focus on. I stayed quiet and kept scrolling, letting the messages speak for themselves. When I reached the one from the night of the proposal, I handed it back to her and read it out loud. She started crying, but not in a way that felt real. It was the kind of crying meant to make you feel guilty for catching them. She said it was a mistake, that it did not mean anything, that Michael was her past and I was her future. Based on what I had read, I was not her future. I was her financial plan until she could divorce me for a better payout. Then she tried blaming me. She said I was emotionally unavailable because I worked nights, that she felt lonely, that Michael understood her better because they had similar backgrounds. At one point she actually said that if I had not gone through her messages, we could have been happy. That was when I finally reacted. I did not scream, but I was not calm either. I asked her how we could have been happy while she and her friends were planning our wedding and her exit strategy at the same time. I asked her how many holidays and birthdays she had ruined by texting him right after celebrating with me. There were messages to him within hours of every major moment we shared. She switched tactics quickly and started talking about the wedding deposits, about how her parents had already paid so much, about what people would think if we called it off. Not once did she say she loved me or that she was sorry. It was all about money and image. I told her the wedding was over and that she had 30 days to move out, making it clear I was following state tenant laws since she had lived there long enough to have rights even though she was not on the lease. I was angry, but I was not reckless. That is when she pulled out her phone. I assumed she was calling her parents. Instead, she was texting the group chat. She looked at me and said I was going to regret this, that I had no idea who I was dealing with. I almost laughed because it sounded ridiculous. I told her again she had 30 days and that I would stay at a friend's place that night so she could start packing if she wanted. I began throwing some clothes into a bag for work the next day. She was still typing, crying, but there was this strange smirk mixed in that I should have taken more seriously. I was almost at the door when she said they were already on their way and that I should stay to hear their side. I am not a small guy, and I have dealt with plenty of heated situations working in a bar, but something about the way she said it made me uneasy. Without saying anything else, I pulled out my phone and started recording, just in case, and that decision probably saved my life. I had barely made it halfway to my car when I saw 2 vehicles pull into the parking lot. All 5 of her friends stepped out, the 2 lawyers, the finance executive, the dermatologist, and the marketing director. They were not in business clothes. It looked like they had thrown on gym outfits or something casual and rushed over, and none of them looked calm. I was standing there in the middle of the lot while Katie watched from our apartment balcony above. My phone was recording in my pocket, and I was trying to decide whether to go back inside or make a run for my car. Before I could move, Hannah, the finance executive, started screaming that I was abusive and that they were not going to let me hurt Katie anymore. I was stunned. The others began spreading out, and it hit me that they were positioning themselves to block both my path to the car and the building entrance. Rachel, one of the lawyers, pulled out her phone and started recording, loudly announcing that they were just there to help Katie collect her things safely and that no one wanted violence. Meanwhile, Jessica, the other lawyer, was texting and grinning like this was entertainment. Maria and Ashley stood nearby, looking nervous but trying to appear supportive. I kept my voice steady, raised my hands so they were visible, and explained that I had legally given Katie 30 days notice and was leaving for the night to give her space. I asked them not to escalate things. That is when Hannah got right in my face, yelling that they knew about my abuse and that they were not letting Katie spend another night with a monster. I kept backing up with my hands still up, telling them there were security cameras and that I was recording, saying that was a mistake. Rachel immediately twisted it, shouting that I was threatening to release private recordings and telling them to grab my phone. In seconds, everything fell apart. Hannah lunged toward my jacket pocket, and as I turned to shield it, Jessica tackled me from behind. I am 6'1" and she is much smaller, but she played rugby in college and knew exactly how to take me down. I hit the ground hard, and she tried to lock me in some kind of hold while Hannah kicked at me. Rachel kept filming, now yelling for me to stop resisting. Maria and Ashley hovered, clearly uncomfortable but not stepping in. I did everything I could not to swing back. I knew how it would look, a bigger guy fighting off a group of women. I focused on protecting my head and not hurting anyone. Then Katie ran out of the building carrying our entire kitchen knife block. Even now that part makes my hands shake. She was yelling about teaching me a lesson and started handing knives out to her friends like it was normal. That is when real panic set in. Jessica still had me pinned, Hannah was kicking me, and now there were knives involved. I managed to free one arm and pulled out my phone, hitting the emergency SOS feature that automatically calls 911 when you press the power button 5 times. I started shouting that the police were coming, hoping neighbors would hear. Rachel kept recording and yelled that no one would believe me. Then Hannah stabbed me. It was quick and I jerked away so it was not deep, but it was enough to need 12 stitches later. There was blood everywhere. I think that is when Maria and Ashley finally realized how serious it had become because they started backing off. The next moments blur together. I remember Katie screaming for them to finish it, Hannah trying to stab me again while Jessica yelled to hold me still. Then I heard sirens. A lot of them. One of my neighbors had also called 911 after seeing the chaos, so officers arrived fast and in force. The parking lot filled with squad cars, and officers came in with guns drawn, ordering everyone to drop the weapons. Hannah and Jessica tried to run but did not get far. Rachel refused to drop her phone until an officer tackled her. Katie stood there holding the empty knife block, screaming that I attacked them and that they were defending themselves. Meanwhile, I was bleeding on the pavement, not fighting back, and the whole thing was captured from multiple angles, my phone recording, the building's security cameras, and Rachel's live stream. The next few hours felt unreal. Ambulance ride, emergency room, police interviews, and endless photos of my injuries, including the stab wound. I had 2 broken ribs, a concussion, the stab wound that needed 12 stitches, and bruises everywhere. I looked like I had gone 10 rounds in a cage fight. What really got me, though, was finding out later that while I was in the ER getting stitched up, they were at the police station arguing with officers about getting their phones back so they could delete personal content. Rachel, an actual licensed lawyer, reportedly said their group chat would be misinterpreted if anyone saw it. That tells you everything. The first night was a haze of painkillers and questions. When the nurse asked me to rate my pain and I said 4 or 5 because I did not want to sound dramatic, she looked at my chart and gave me something stronger anyway. At some point, a victim advocate from the district attorney's office came in to explain what would happen next. I barely remember most of it, but I do remember her saying this was one of the clearest cases of premeditated assault she had seen in years. She turned out to be right. Meanwhile, Katie and her crew were booked into county jail and separated because they would not stop trying to coordinate their stories. Rachel kept demanding her one phone call like she was on a crime show. Jessica tried the "do you know who I am" routine. Hannah had a meltdown when they took her designer jacket as evidence because it had my blood on it. Then it got worse for them. Rachel had not just been recording. She had been live streaming to a private Instagram group. Once the police secured warrants for their phones and social media, they uncovered months of planning. The group chat was a blueprint. They had outlined a plan to provoke me into getting angry, record me defending myself, edit the footage to make it look like abuse, file false domestic violence charges, have me arrested and removed from my own apartment, move Katie in with Michael while I was in jail, let the wedding date pass, and then file for divorce claiming emotional distress to get a bigger settlement. They even discussed camera angles and who would say what. The most unbelievable part is they used their corporate work phones to coordinate all of it. As if that was not enough, 2 days after the attack, While I was still recovering, Katie showed up at my bar and started telling my staff and customers that I was abusive and that I had attacked her friends. My assistant manager Dave caught everything on security cameras and called the police. She did it 3 more times before officers finally arrested her for violating the emergency restraining order. Each time she brought either Maria or Ashley to back her up, and they filmed those visits too, probably thinking they were building a case. Those videos ended up strengthening the charges against them. Then Michael decided to step in. He sent threatening emails to me and to the officers involved, claiming he had connections and that everything would disappear if I dropped the charges. He sent those messages from his official law firm email. A licensed attorney threatening a victim and law enforcement from a traceable account. The district attorney's office took that personally. About a week later, at the bail hearing, their defense team showed up polished and confident, talking about their clients' reputations and community standing. The judge looked half asleep during their speech. Then the prosecutor began presenting the evidence. Security footage from multiple angles, my phone recording, Rachel's live stream, screenshots of their group chats, searches about staging self-defense, Michael's threats, video of Katie harassing me at work, medical reports showing defensive wounds, witness statements, and the knife with Hannah's fingerprints and my DNA. The judge's expression changed instantly. He set bail at $500,000 each and ordered Hannah, Jessica, and Rachel to surrender their passports and wear ankle monitors. The judge labeled them flight risks because they had international bank accounts and property overseas. So Hannah, Jessica, and Rachel were held on high bail with ankle monitors, while Maria and Ashley, who had not physically attacked me, faced lesser charges but still had restrictions, and Katie was charged with conspiracy and forced to surrender her passport too. About 2 weeks later, everything shifted when Ashley, who had clearly been unraveling since the arrest, decided to cooperate. Her lawyer reached out to the DA with an offer to make a deal, and it turned out she had a separate group chat the others did not know about where the planning was even more detailed. She handed over voice notes of Katie describing how they had rehearsed the attack at Maria's home gym, videos of them debating how to make it look like self-defense, messages explaining they chose my apartment because they believed they could manipulate the security camera angles, and, worst of all, a video from a wine bar the night I proposed where they were celebrating her engagement while mapping out how to use a staged incident to secure a bigger divorce settlement. While I was texting our families the good news, they were plotting how to ruin me. The trial began in November, about 7 months after the attack, and those months leading up to it were exhausting. Katie, along with Maria and Ashley before her deal was finalized, tried to smear me around town, creating fake social media accounts to post edited clips, reaching out to my employees for gossip, even showing up at my parents' house to push their version of events. The prosecutor assigned to me was a small woman in her 50s who looked warm and unassuming until court started. Then she was relentless. Her advice was simple: document everything and do not engage. So I kept records of every fake account, every message, every attempt to provoke me, and each one only strengthened the case against them. In court, their defense argued they were protecting Katie from an abusive relationship, despite no record of abuse and the fact that they had arrived at my home carrying knives. They tried to paint me as controlling because I confronted her about cheating and asked her to move out. I testified for 2 days while their attorneys pushed every button they could, accusing me of lying, hinting that I was the aggressor, even suggesting I had issues with her spending time alone with friends. I stayed calm and stuck to the facts. The prosecution then laid out the timeline on a large screen for the jury, building footage of them entering and positioning themselves, my phone recording of the confrontation, Rachel's live stream showing the knives, security footage of the attack, police body cam clips from the arrests, video of Katie harassing me at work, screenshots of the group chats detailing the plan, Michael's threatening emails, medical images of my injuries, and the knife with Hannah's fingerprints and my blood. Ashley's testimony was the turning point. Under her plea agreement, she explained how the scheme had been developing for months, how Katie had been cheating before the engagement but believed waiting until after the wedding would increase her leverage, and how they practiced the attack to make it appear justified. The jury could see this was not an impulsive act. It was calculated. Then Katie chose to testify. It was a mistake. She began with tears and claims of fear, but there was no evidence to support them. When confronted with her own messages, she became defensive and angry, insisting I deserved what happened because I had looked through her iPad. In the middle of that outburst, she admitted that Michael had helped her draft the false police report accusing me of abuse. She said it under oath without realizing what she had done. You could almost feel the energy shift in the courtroom. After that, the defense unraveled quickly. The jury deliberated for 6 hours before returning guilty verdicts for Hannah, Jessica, and Rachel. In the end, the whole crew was convicted. Hannah, Jessica, and Rachel were found guilty of attempted aggravated assault, conspiracy, and several related charges, while Maria was convicted on conspiracy and accessory counts, and Ashley, because she cooperated and testified, received probation under her plea agreement. The sentencing hearing was intense. The judge did not hold back. He called it one of the most calculated and malicious cases he had seen in 3 decades on the bench and made it clear that their professional backgrounds made it worse, not better, because they fully understood the consequences of what they were doing. Hannah received 36 months in state prison with no chance of parole for the first 24 months, followed by 5 years of probation. Jessica and Rachel were given the same sentence. Maria was sentenced to 18 months of probation and 300 hours of community service. Ashley, because of her testimony, got 12 months of probation. Katie's case was handled separately, and she eventually accepted a plea deal, which I will get into another time. As for Michael, that is a story on its own. Every one of them lost their professional standing. The attorneys were disbarred, Maria lost her medical license, and the finance executive had her certifications revoked. The careers they had spent years building disappeared almost overnight, their reputations were wrecked, and several of them lost their freedom for years. It has been a long road, but that is where things stand now, and I will share updates if anything else happens. Thanks to everyone who followed along and showed support.